Peter was staying in Joppa with a tanner named Simon. Tanners worked with dead animal hides, even their dung. Jewish law considered them unclean. About 32 miles north in Caesarea, there was a Roman centurion, Cornelius. Cornelius wasn't ethnically Jewish, but he worshipped their God. Jews looked down upon Gentiles and hated the Roman occupiers. But Cornelius prayed to Yahweh and gave donations to Jews. He was not the typical Gentile Roman occupier. Now, Peter had had a series of visions. He was at this point up on the roof trying to figure out what these visions meant when Cornelius's 3 men show up at the house. Cornelius was calling on Peter to come deliver a message. God was confirming his vision to Peter. Israel for years had fought the Gentile neighbors. Gentile traditions were different from theirs. The Jewish people were the people of the book with a refined, studied religious tradition. Their Gentile neighbors were simply heathens. The Jewish people who had become Christians had only ventured as far as preaching to the Hellenized Jews and the Samaritans, who were mixed Jews. Now God is directing Peter to expand the mission, and Peter is expected to go to a Gentile's house filled with Gentiles ready to listen to all that God has told him to convey. Our lesson starts with Peter proclaiming that God is not prejudiced. His grace extends to all who believe. In essence, Peter, ordained by Jesus to be the leader of this new Christian movement, declares that all are eligible to receive the grace of God. He told them about Jesus, about his life, his baptism, his death, his resurrection, how God anointed Jesus of Nazareth with the Holy Spirit and with power, and that he had gone around doing good and healing. He told them how he was crucified and buried, but arose from the very grave. He told them how he had been witness eating and drinking even after his death. Peter reminds them, and he reminds us, of our duty to proclaim Jesus. He told them that we can only be saved through faith in Jesus. As modern Christians, sometimes we're intimidated. Sometimes we're afraid to witness, thinking that we don't know enough. But if you look at Peter's message, it's very simple, very rudimentary. But Peter's actions here took courageous leadership. Here, Peter shows a willingness to lead this fledgling church in a bold new direction, different from any other faith tradition at that time. Yes, Peter is following the vision of God, but we all can think of numerous examples in the Bible of leaders who failed to follow God's directions, but not Peter in this case. Peter, who had with fear and cowardice denied Jesus, now boldly stands up against religious societal norms and starts Christianity on a path from a cult-like offshoot of Judaism to becoming the world's largest faith tradition. During this day, religious tradition and ethnicity were, by and large, with only a few exceptions, the same. Peter's actions moves Christianity to becoming a diverse faith where people of every ethnicity, every background were entitled to God's grace. As Peter delivered his message, the Spirit fell upon them. The gifts of the Spirit were poured out on them, and they began to speak in tongues. The people obviously believed Peter, and because of their faith, God not only sealed them with the Spirit, but he also baptized them with the Spirit as well. The circumcised believers, mainly those who were Jewish, who had come with Peter, were astonished that the gift of the Holy Spirit had been poured out on these Gentiles. This did not fit the commonly held Jewish narrative about Gentiles. Remember, bias does not suddenly end even though we have joined the church. We have seen church disputes and friction arising from diversity. Worshiping with people from different backgrounds, different cultures, different faith traditions was not just different, it goes against all that they were taught as they were growing up. So Peter points out the unity that comes from our shared faith, asserting that these people have expressed the Holy Spirit just as those from the Jewish tradition had done, and they should not be denied their place in the church. Our lesson ends like other events in Acts. New believers are frequently mentioned to have been baptized right after they come to the faith, and this lesson ends with these new believers being baptized. That's the lesson for this week. Have a great week. Bye.